The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. This is Bob Jakowski, and thank you for joining our webinar today. It's exciting to have you join us and love to talk to you about this topic, which is, as we sit here in October, mid-October, we've got about 2.5 months left. And one of the questions we often get from many of our clients is, what can I do at the end of the year to accelerate business into this quarter? What can I do to accelerate the closing process that we have with our clients and opportunities? What can I do to create new business? Perhaps if I need to expand the funnel of business that I have to close for this quarter. We're going to discuss those topics today and share with you some best practices. In fact, we're going to share 9 best practices that you can apply today to actually make this quarter more successful than when you came to the webinar. So we want to share those best practices with you. And by the way, because we've got 9 today that we're going to discuss, we're going to get in depth with some of them, and others we'll just touch on. But for all of you that are attending, keep in mind that if you want to have a follow-up call with me and you would like to discuss how to apply these or learn more about these specific best practices, we'll set up a call with you. So after today's webinar, and it's going to be recorded, so you can share that with colleagues, Dale McConnell on our team, he's one of our partners, he's going to follow up with you to see if you'd like to set up a time to either get further information or to set up a meeting to discuss the application on one or more of these best practices. As with all of our webinars, they were interactive, so please go ahead, post your questions that you have. We'll make sure that we address those questions, if not earlier, but definitely in the Q&A session. And then we're going to have a couple polls to take your temperature in terms of what's important to you, so that we can make sure that we focus on that. So again, thank you everybody for coming. Let's jump into how to accelerate your revenue growth for this quarter for Q4 2023. And let's start off with a question. When you think about closing out the quarter, what's your top challenge that you typically are faced with as you think about this quarter in particular? And here's some choices. So please pick one if you could, and we'll share the information after you have a chance to participate in the poll. You need more opportunities this quarter to close. That could be one of the challenges you have. Another one is that you need to accelerate the ability to close the opportunities that you already have, either in your pipeline or your funnel. A third could be that you need stronger drivers to close. In other words, you may be in a situation where customers, clients will close when they close, and you're amiss at trying to figure out how you're going to create drivers for that. You may need a better strategy for these existing opportunities in terms of how you're going to bring them to close, or you may need all the above. So go ahead if you could, and we'll leave the poll open here for just a little bit longer and then share the results. But thank you very much for participating. Okay. All right. Just another second or two, and appreciate everybody. Let me go ahead and share the results. All right. And here's the results. So 50% of you attending today's webinar need more opportunities this quarter. So we're going to talk about that. 10%, you need to accelerate the close that you have with your existing opportunities. And then 20% of you stated that you need a better strategy for the existing opportunities. And then finally, 20% said, I need all of the above. So thank you for participating with that. Appreciate that. We're going to address those questions that you have and those challenges. A little bit about our company. On-Demand Advisors is a revenue acceleration partner. What makes us different is we're strategic. We're very strategic in understanding where you want to head with the company, where you see growth for your company, and that's the first thing. The second thing is we're going to bring a whole set of best practices to the table because we've worked with hundreds of B2B companies to actually help their management team do exactly what we're talking about today. And not only bring the best ideas and best practices, but implement those for our clients, help them achieve that and achieve the results they're looking for. So it's not a campaign, it's a program, it's much more than that in terms of what we bring to our clients. And this is probably a good place to start. When you think about how you're going to create revenue for your company, there are 7 areas on this map here that we talk about. This is really kind of a system, if you will, because revenue creation is a connected system. If you think about it, it's not just about marketing. It's not just about sales. It's not just about strategy. It's not just about business development. All these are functions in your company and client services that are intertwined together, that need to work together to actually accelerate the adoption process with new clients and customers that you have today. So next month, when we have our next webinar, we're going to walk through how to put in this revenue acceleration engine as we talk about it for the markets that you're going after so you can win those markets. But today, we're going to talk about 9 things that you can do to accelerate business into the quarter. So let's look at these 9. The top ones in green that we're going to talk about are really about how can you still create new sales this quarter. Now, many of you may say, is that even possible at this point? And the answer is yes, you can. So we're going to walk you through some of those ways to create new sales. The next set is we're going to talk about how do you accelerate the existing sales opportunities that you have. So a lot of times, one of the issues that we hear often from executives is our sales cycles are too long. They're taking too long, and it's too costly for us. So there are ways that we're going to talk about that you can accelerate the close, accelerate the sales process. And then the last is really having the right strategy to close that opportunity with that prospect. So we're going to talk about 3 ways to do that. And again, as I said, we're going to spend some time in depth on one specific area and give you some examples of clients that we've worked with to do that. In other areas, we're going to give you food for thought, and if you're interested, we can have another additional conversation about that. Okay, let's look at the first set. How do you create new sales this quarter and still do that in terms of being able to close that by December 31st? So let's cover these 3 in detail. The first one is we call it customer success or customer expansion program. I don't know today how many of you do this, but we help clients really think about how to put in at least an annual, if not quarterly, performance review meeting with their clients, with their customers. It serves a couple purposes. Number one is it aligns the goals that your customer has. You may have a customer for 5 or 10 years. And if you don't do this on an annual basis, obviously they have their direction, you have your direction, and it's very easy to not be aligned. So these customer expansion, this program, and these ABR, as known in the industry, annual business reviews, these bring you together with the team that uses your solution, your services. It brings you together with executives. It uncovers new opportunities. And in our case, it always generates revenue. So the way we help companies put that program in place is we create the performance review meeting agenda. We actually help set up the meetings because a lot of times if you have, let's say, 200 or 1,000 clients today, you've got to have somebody who's outbound going to set up all these meetings with your calendars, with executives. And then we help establish how do you uncover new opportunities to serve, to upsell, and to support. All these drive new revenue. So I'll give you an example. One of our customers is in the document management space, and they provide accounts payable processing solutions, a company called Max Recall Technologies. And they have about 200 clients, been very successful over a number of years building up that customer base. So as we got together with Raymond and with his team, we realized there's a huge opportunity to go back in and to have them meet with all their customers. And by doing so, we helped them not only set up the agenda, we helped them look at the bundling of their solutions, look at new services that they could offer to their customers. And then from there, we helped them set up all the meetings. So they were having customer meetings 6 to 7 per week that we set up for them. Every one of those meetings either created new training opportunities and migration opportunities, or actually uncovered new opportunities for them that they had. So just through this program alone, they were able to increase their revenue by 20%. So this is huge. It's huge, and the reason it's also important is because um, it is the most straightforward way for you to increase revenue. The next best practice we'd like to talk about is launch instead of release. So many of you have solutions, services, and I'm always amazed because obviously I used to be the CEO for a number of successful software companies in Silicon Valley, and I was always amazed to see companies that would release new major parts of their software and do it on Friday evening. Now they were doing it on Friday evening because they didn't want to disrupt all their customers today that were using the software, but it was no fanfare. It was really no fanfare to bring out the new release, no fanfare to get new customers excited about it, and no fanfare in terms of getting revenue. So one of the most important things that we've helped companies do is to do a proper launch. And we have a three-part program that we help our clients execute. The first one is before the launch, and the launch, by the way, could be a webinar. It could be at a conference. It could be at a trade show. It could be in conjunction with a number of other partners. So there are a lot of ways to launch your program or solution. But the first thing that needs to happen is the education and promotion 6 to 8 weeks before the launch. Then you have to do the launch event. And then from there, you've got to do the most important part, which is convert that interest into sales follow-up and convert that interest into revenue. There's nothing more difficult, I think, for many business owners that I know to spend a lot of money in terms of R&D and development, to maybe spend $1 million developing a new solution, bring it to market and have no sales. So that's because they didn't launch it properly. So if you launch it properly, you're going to drive substantial revenue on the back end of this. So one of our customers is another customer is Technical Toolboxes. They are a leading provider of engineering performance management solutions, software and solutions to engineering companies in the oil and gas in the oil and gas industry. So both midstream as well as upstream and downstream. And so what we've done is we've helped them launch quite a few different solutions. And when we looked at encroachment, because what they have is they have software that looks at encroachments on the pipeline, then we wanted to help them launch that. And so what we did is we built out all the things under the now to drive awareness. We helped them execute the webinar, build all the slides, the customer testimonials, the 30-day promotion, make sure we added the buyer's journey on the website. And then from there, we basically made sure that their sales team could follow up on all this interest. So we gave them the sales tools that they needed: a buyer's guide, use case guide, ROI cost justification guide, recorded webinar, recorded demonstrations, and the script. And they had a tremendous follow-up and success rate in terms of closing new business because this wasn't just a release, it was a true launch. The third area that you could look at is offering a assessment, a benchmark analysis, or a performance review. Because your buyer doesn't know where they have gaps. Your buyer doesn't really know extensively where they have opportunities for improvement. But when you offer a analysis, and by the way, companies offer these things informally, we think that that's not effective. We think you have to package it up, you have to promote it, you may have to make it one of your offerings. We were just talking to another client today, and if you looked at, we're just beginning to work with them, but if you looked at their calls to action on their website, the only two things that they had on the website were sign up for a demonstration or fill out this web form. So one of the things that we really want to do is we want to give you the tools so that you can actually do things like a benchmark analysis. So creating that, structuring the program, making sure the client understands what they're getting out of it in the process. It's the discovery you'd have to do anyway in a sales process. Why not provide it so it's valued to your prospect or your buyer or client? And so this is kind of really important. Another one of our clients is a company called Catalyst Resources, and they're out of San Mateo, California. And what they do is they help companies with their UI um, interface and customer experience, whether that be a software company, whether it be a medical devices company, whether it be a financial institution. And so as we worked with them and understood strategically what they do for their clients, we asked them, what is it that people really want to know up front when they begin working with you? And they said, well, they really want to know, um, does their user interface, does their customer experience, how does that rank against other companies, competitors? And then how does that rank against best practices in this area? So what we did with them is we created a number of benchmark analysis offerings, and that really helped them accelerate the process because many people were looking at, they wanted to do this, they just didn't know how to go about doing it. So rather than informally just offer this, we packaged it into a set of offerings for benchmarking, and they were they offered it. Some were paid, some were free, but they offered it as an upfront analysis for their clients, and it really helped them accelerate the sales cycle. So these are three different areas that you can look at as far as finding new business and accelerating that business. Let's look at the three additional practices that you can apply today to accelerate your sales process. The first one we like to talk about is what we call the Quick Start program. And this is something that we've done with every one of our clients, which is, why don't you offer something really quick to land and expand and begin the implementation of your service or your solution quickly? Give them an opportunity to have time to benefit in 60 to 90 days and deliver that incredible value. The reason why this program is great is because it helps you accelerate the process. When you can provide a quick start program, in many cases, your sponsor is looking for a way to justify the investment over time with you. And by showing quick time to benefit, it basically eliminates the risk, number one, in their environment. Number two is it shows quick results. And number three, it shows fit. It shows fit with what they're doing. And so we've done this with many clients. And an example is working with a company called Forte, which provides mining software. So they provide mining software, and it's also conjunction with where materials actually are transported across the mining operations, either on the surface or underground. But the challenge that they had is that it was not just software, it was hardware, it was services. So what we said is, why don't we put together a package here called the Quick Start Kit? And let's provide that so that you don't have to go through the quoting process every time with every new prospect. You also can get them to say yes or no to something very quickly. And so we found it was really a substantial way to change the dynamics of the sales process that they had. And we've done this with every client thus far, which is creating a quick start program for them. This is really interesting. I'm going to talk you through the next one, which is building the ROI cost justification case. All of you have found situations where your biggest competitor maybe do nothing, right? Meaning that you go through the sales process, you maybe give presentations, demonstrations, you answer all the questions, you provide testimonials and so forth, and nothing happens. So what I found in my career over many years is that the number one competitors do nothing. And so that's really tough because it means that you're going to use all of that expense to go through a sales cycle, but not achieve the goal, either for the client or for yourself. So one of the things that we've done, and we do this with every client we work with, is build an ROI guide. Now, the ROI guide is how does somebody like your champion cost justify your investment? So if they're going to make an investment in your solution, your service, they need a means to do that. I think many times we don't understand when we're working with a champion at a company, they don't know how to put this together. They don't know how to put together the business case. They don't know where the savings are. They don't know where the performance improvements are. They don't know how they're going to achieve greater profitability, but you do. So what we like to do is couple the ROI model with the guide, and to do that through a workshop. So let me give you an example. One of our customers is ProdStream. Now, ProdStream provides solutions to government contractors to actually help them manage the cost estimating, the bid proposal, and the project management of all their projects. So if you're a large aerospace company, you would use their solution to basically look at how you're going to manage all of your proposals and increase your win rate that you have. And really, very compelling. As we introduced the idea of a ROI workshop in the ROI guide, what they were able to do recently with one of their clients is to get together through that facilitated workshop. And as you can see right here, they were able to come up with a net savings of about $3.2 million. What that equated to was a 280% ROI and a payback in 6 months. Now, by providing all of this detailed information back to the client, it was very easy for them to move forward very quickly with the purchase and investment of their services and solutions. But it was that ROI cost justification that really helped. Without this, I think many times we see clients don't get business, ends up with do nothing, but they never get the feedback about why it didn't happen. And I would venture to tell you that the reason why, in many cases, your sales cycles don't complete with a closed customer is because A, you haven't demonstrated enough value, or B, you haven't demonstrated the return on investment that they're going to look for before they purchase. Let's talk about the next one. This is something that may be intuitive to you today, it may not be, but that is when you are going through the sales process, when somebody is thinking about working with you through the implementation of your service, of your solution, of onboarding, um, the processes that you bring to the table, a lot of times you don't want them to focus on when the contract's going to get signed. Instead, it's better to focus on when are they going to start realizing the benefit. So if your contract to close and then closed to live is, let's say, 60 days or 90 days, you really want to focus your buyer on the go live date. When are they going to start receiving the benefit? Because if you can get them to focus on that, you can get them focused on what has to happen between now and then. So historically, you could do this in many different ways. You could look at a compelling event, maybe you have a team set aside to work with them, but you can only hold that team for so long based upon signed contracts. Or you have other types of things, resources that are scarce that need to be allocated based upon a first come, first serve. So this is a great way for you to create that type of sense of urgency. Okay, so we just covered 3 ways that you can accelerate your sales process today. Let's cover 3 ways that you can improve your close ratio. The matching customer success testimonial. The challenge that most of us have when you're going through the end-to-end sales process is the risk is not high until the end. But before somebody makes a decision, before your sponsor or decision maker makes a decision to invest with your company, they're looking at the risk. They're concerned about the risk at that point in time. The best way for you to mitigate risk is to provide a very similar customer that is already reaping the rewards of your service or solution today. That's why when we work with our clients, we always do a lot of work around customer testimonials, whether it be a video testimonial, whether it be a webinar where they present the benefits that they've been able to receive, whether it's a written customer success story, whether it's a quote. All of these are important sales tools that you're going to need to go close business. And so the success testimonial is just compelling. It's very, very compelling. And so a lot of times when we work with clients, we actually help them develop those testimonials. Um, we're working with one of our clients today where one of their largest customers that actually manages 5,000 franchises is going to speak at their next webinar next week about how they use that solution for coaching for performance. Now, everybody is looking at that franchise owner as a lighthouse account in the industry. So the more people that are exposed to that are going to say, "Wow, if it's good enough for that company, it's going to be good enough for us." Another thing that we look at when we think about customer success stories is one of the obstacles you may have. One of the obstacles you may have is that maybe you work with companies that don't want to give you the opportunity to write a success story about them. Let's say you're working with Fortune 2500 companies. So when we do that, we realize there's still got to be a way to tell the story. When you help somebody be successful with your solution, you've got to be able to tell the story. Another one of our clients is a company called ICUC. Now, ICUC is a social media management services giant. They have employees in 36 countries worldwide, and they provide social media management services to the Fortune 2500. I mean, it's an incredible service that they provide. However, when we were working with them, the challenge that they had is that they would typically work with Macy's, Novartis, Google, Nike, just really tremendously big companies. And those companies weren't going to give them, their legal department, weren't going to give them the okay to actually use their name in a customer testimonial. So what we did is we wrote industry testimonials. So for instance, the one on the right is from Macy's. And so we could still tell the same story just as effectively. But what we did is we actually did this across 12 different industries so that every person in charge of social media management services, let's say it's Starbucks, could see other testimonials in the food and beverage industry. Because what we realized is that they wanted to see social in their industry. They didn't want to see social in somebody else's industry. The next I like to talk about is a strategic deal review. This is what we're doing with one of our clients. And when opportunities get to be a certain size, what we're doing is we're sitting down with them and going through the actual opportunity in detail. We're looking at the strategy, we're looking at where there are gaps, and we're coming up with a game plan on how that's going to get closed this quarter. So this would be an example where we actually have a really easy to use sheet that we used as they're selling to advanced home healthcare. And that organization has quite a few different locations. And so what we're doing is we're really thinking through the game plan that they have, the players, the agenda, and what's the strategy to win the deal. Very different than what's the strategy to compete in the deal. And then looking at what are the obstacles that we need to overcome, and then how do we accelerate the closing process. So let's look at one more for this set of 9 that we're going through today. And again, we're going through this very rapidly, so we're happy to take time to go through one in detail with you and talk about how that gets put in place. So if you think about that, every year, if you are reaching your target audience, and your target audience may be in a vertical, maybe in a geography, maybe in a certain space, maybe a certain account type, however you define your markets. But about 5% of your target market typically is going to invest in your type of service or solution every year. The challenge is, unless you're reaching 100% of your target market, you don't know which 5% that is. So one of the things we would strongly suggest both now and then going into 2024, is to put in your revenue acceleration engine. And we do this many, many times. We're very serial at what we do with this. But the engine is the ability for you to engage 100% of your target audience, take them through the buyer's journey, and then convert them into customers. And just like with any engine, you'd expect there are a set of components. Just like with any great recipe, there are the necessary ingredients. So when we help a company implement their engine to go win their markets, like let's say the healthcare market, or the nonprofit market, or the education market, it's about putting in all 9 of these components that we actually help them put in, and then optimize and scale that. So today, it may be putting in this engine and getting, let's say, 200 leads per month. A year from now, it may be 600 leads per month because we're scaling with the company. So if we just kind of walk through these, it starts off with number 1, having an intentional revenue acceleration model. What are the goals that you want to achieve? 30% growth year over year, 50% growth? Which accounts do you want to win? Which markets do you want to win? Which customers are more profitable than others for you? The second is moving to what we call outcome-focused marketing, which is how do you actually help your clients achieve success? This is very different than the messaging you typically see on websites today, which is about products and services. The third area is buyer intelligence. How do we know we've got the right messaging unless we've surveyed enough buyers to figure this out? The fourth is putting in that, what we talked about earlier, that reach strategy to reach 100% of your audience. The fifth is putting in your revenue acceleration infrastructure. The sixth is mapping the buyer's journey, and you may have multiple buyers that you need to map. The seventh is creating engagement offers, such as a buyer's guide, such as a recorded demonstration, such as an explainer video, such as a success story that your buyers want. The eighth is reaching your buyer where they want to be reached. And the ninth is measuring your conversions, your ROI, and your success. Now, if you put this in, it's amazing what this can do for your company. So that would be what I would say when we walk through these 9 best practices. These are the things we're talking about. So the first set, just to recap, is all about how are you going to go ahead and find new business this quarter. The second is about how do you accelerate the existing sales opportunities you have today. And the third is how do you close those opportunities. So what we've walked through in our short webinar today is 9 best practices to accelerate your revenue growth. And let's do another poll if we could and get your opinion on this. All right. So when you think about your major takeaway from today's webinar, what would you say that is? Is it that you'd like to implement 1 or 2 of these best practices this quarter to help you achieve success? Is it that you'd like to maybe add a customer annual business review to what you do today so that you can actually look at achieving better wallet share with your customers? Is it that you'd like to add a business case, an ROI to all of your major opportunities, as we talked about? Perhaps you'd like to add some of these sales accelerators that we talked about too for your opportunities. And like a quick start program. Quick start program is another great example. And then finally, maybe applying a strategic deal review in a rigorous way with all of your opportunities so that you really have true visibility in terms of what's happening in terms of the closing strategy to win these opportunities. So go ahead and appreciate everybody participating in this survey. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to open this up for Q&A. Okay, let me go ahead and close our poll, share the results. Okay, 44% of you stated that you'd like to implement one or two of these best practices now, which is great. 22% stated you'd like to add an annual business review with your customers. And another 33% stated you'd like to add sales process accelerators like we talked about, such as a quick start program. So that's great. And myself, Dale, and our team will follow up with you and make sure you get what you need as far as either the information or the next meeting, and appreciate you participating on that. All right, what we'd like to do right now is we'd like to open it up for a Q&A. So let's go ahead and do that. And just go ahead, if you could, post your questions. And as I said earlier, this is recorded, so you can share this with colleagues, share this with other members of your management team. But as I look at it, Q4 is always a magical time. So let's start with the first question. This one is from Mark. Mark says, do you help with the partner program as well? Absolutely, Mark. So one of the things that we look at what we call revenue vectors for growth. One revenue vector would be working with partners and driving business with and through partners. Mapping out your ecosystem. That's something that we always do. A second revenue vector would be new customer acquisition. A third would be your customer upsell, cross-sell expansion program we just talked about. And the third one we talked about, or the fourth one, is really focusing in on the launch. And when you bring new solutions or services to the market, making sure that those are revenue growth opportunities for your company as well. The next question is from Holly. How do you share with the team? Not sure I totally get that, Holly, as far as what you're asking there, but in terms of maybe the question is, how do we work with you as an example? That's a good question, because when we work with clients and we bring in our revenue acceleration operating model, sometimes you may have nobody, for instance, in marketing. As an example, at AvExchange, where Craig built out the success there. Sometimes you may have a team already in place. And what we do is we complement that team and work with them and accelerate that. Sometimes when we work with a large company, a public company, we're going to come in with best practices, and we're going to help work with their team to actually implement those best practices. So this is really important, that we are symbiotic when we work with a customer, understand the needs of the customer. Let's see. So next question is, how do we share this webinar with our management team? What we're going to be doing is we'll be following up with everybody after today's webinar this evening, and we'll be sharing with you a link to the webinar so that you can share with the management team. Also, we'll follow up with you and see if you'd like to set up an introductory meeting, like a GoToMeeting or a Zoom call, and see if that would make sense too. Because sometimes the webinar is great, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to ask questions. Here is another question. This one is from Jennifer. What's the best way to get started? A good question. There's a couple of different ways to get started. One is to pick one or a number of these 9 accelerators that we just talked about to get started there. Another way, because I said Q4 is magical, another way that we work with many of our clients is to create what we call a revenue acceleration playbook. So in November, we're going to talk about basically building that playbook. What goes into the playbook so that you can achieve your success? So in that playbook, we're going to basically cover quite a few things. We're going to talk about what have you done historically, what are you doing today, and then really think about what do you need to have in place to achieve your success? How do you engineer the revenue growth you're looking for? So in November, on the 21st, our next webinar is going to be specifically how do you engineer predictable revenue growth? So whether you're at Technical Toolboxes and you wanted to grow at 25% year over year, whether you're at ICUC and you wanted to grow at 51% year over year, or whether you're at Exchange and you want to grow at 100% year over year, these are opportunities available for you to do this. So just wanted you to know that all these exist for you. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions. Okay, so here's one more question. Let's do one more question here. And this is from Meredith. Meredith said, if you could pick the top three from this list, what would they be? Good question. I think every one of these has merit in terms of helping you be successful this quarter. But let me tell you my favorite top three. The first one is the customer expansion program. To me, that's a no-brainer for you to look at today, because if you're not looking at going back into your customers, doing an annual business review, and looking at revenue growth opportunities, you're not maximizing what's right in front of you today. Number two is the Quick Start program. Packaging up, people may say it's a proof of concept or something like that. I would never use that terminology. I would use a Quick Start program, which is a paid program to achieve initial success. So if you do that, and for instance, at ProdStream, they have a Quick Start program that they offer their clients for $65,000. It's been very successful in terms of getting people started, showing them results, and then expanding to a full deployment. So the third area that I would say probably is most impactful for you today is what I call the strategic deal review. And that's sitting down and looking at a handful of opportunities that you have today that you really want to close. I found that a lot of times there's nothing more powerful than getting a number of experienced people around the table to look at the opportunities that you have and figure out creatively what are the ways to close that opportunity. What are the ways to address gaps? What are the ways to ensure that you win? So those are some great questions, and thank you for those questions. Okay, so let's go forward here. Here's our contact information. Myself and Craig were the founders and principals for On-Demand Advisors. Dale will be following up with you also, and we have an entire team that is broken into four areas: strategy, marketing, sales enablement, and finally, partners. Working with partners, your partner program, helping you achieve success in your partners that you have as far as your ecosystem. So here's our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us independently if you like to. Ask questions, follow up. We'll do the same thing with you, and we'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of today's recorded webinar. So on behalf of Craig, myself, Dale, and the entire On-Demand Advisors team, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I wish you great success this quarter in Q4, and great success as we look forward to navigating 2024. Thank you, everyone.